And for those of you who are familiar with my ABE commentaries and the work from the Unified book, you will know that I've been presenting some of the communications from what we know as ABE, which is the unified field of consciousness as far as we're able to discern, and according to the communications from ABE. And in the book Life in the Continua and the video, the ABE communications, I've been putting out some of my commentaries on the communications themselves, because the way it comes through can be in some ways a slightly archaic way of expression, how the communications come through. But those communications were from previously, from several years ago. And although recently we have not been receiving many communications, or rather my colleague Nicola receives the communications, they haven't been coming through very often. In fact, this year we've only had 12 nudges, and these are communications that come without any question, without any expectation. There's just what Nicola calls a nudge, an inner urge to sit down quietly and receive the communication. But the ones that have been coming through recently have seemingly been, according to ABE, important for this time. So I thought that rather than leave them longer for them to eventually find their way through the process and get put out further down the line, which could be some time, there is also a second ABE communications book in the works to come out. I thought that I would make a series of spontaneous readings and exposure of the nudges when they come in. So I thought I would start this series with some nudges that came in earlier in the year, but still for this time. So I'll read them out directly. This is how they came about. This is a nudge from the end of February of this year. I'm reading. It says, "You see, and what we say is of utmost importance for you in these times. And although it is not wished upon you to pinpoint a timely location, we feel this should be conveyed now. Your part has never been a part. We say this continually. And what we mean here, and what will allow others, is to know that you are bringing this energy in, up if you will, not down. You have set it apart, so the process up to now has been in allowance of, you see. What is that this is taking something you have placed apart and knowing it is, and has always been integral. It must not be placed as spirit, as God, as higher self, but it is yourself. This is so very important now. You are joining the dots, allowing your unconscious and conscious. You are taking a vibratory resonance within yourself and joining the dots. This is but your flow of consciousness, for it has to be in relation to, does it not? To enable it to flow, your unconscious is dormant flow that you bring to light, to conscious being. In that you see this is so how it must be seen from the start. We have said we are not a name, a being placed apart from ABE, but that on of abbreviation. Abbreviation is something you shorten. But you see, it is also something that you set apart to then bring back into its entirety. It is the full meaning, albeit being abbreviated. It is but a relational point. It is of value, This has so always been the case, to claim it as so. There is not spirit and you, soul and you, Abe and you. It is all tightly interwoven. It is in your DNA, as well as a manner of other things. Junk DNA, black holes, all an integral part of more relational points, sitting dormant for your senses to grow sharper, to allow more. See this as a defining point in which you not only allow it, but you root it in your very being. You are not a part. This is not a part, but your senses reaching out into the ether to bring it to light. To be awake is to merge conscious and unconscious. In this you are only ever waking yourselves. We are but a point of relation to enable this, for it has to be within you already, does it not? It is all there. You are just pushing it to the surface, bringing it to light, if you will, to then allow others. You see now, with much relation, you are a resonating point of relation, a synapse, if you will, of the collective, the inside out. With much relational continuance now, Abe. As you can see, it's kind of archaic, but I've got used to how Abe communicates over the time. So Abe is saying in the beginning that although it's not wished to be a pinpointed time and location, i.e. although they don't wish to specify a particular time for us, they do feel that this message should be conveyed now, because they don't usually work in human time, but they feel around this time it's relevant. And what they're trying to say is that we have to bring in the energy. It has to come through us. We have to allow it. And Abe talks a lot about allowance. We have to allow the energy to come through us, but unfortunately we're blocking it a lot of the time. And by allowing it, we have to be relational, not isolated beings, not in a one-to-one relation, but relational. And that we have to allow this energy to flow through others by first allowing it to flow through us. As Abe says, it's always been integral. Don't think of it as spirit over there, or higher self there, or God there, or Abe there. It's all interwoven, it's all integral. And Abe says that they've said from the start that they're not a name, but although we did ask for them to give us some kind of recognition marker, so to speak. And they chose Abe because Abe signifies abbreviation. ABE is a shortened form of abbreviation. An abbreviation signifies that any name they have is an abbreviation or shortened version of the whole, and is no name can ever be the whole. Any name is only abbreviation of the entirety, the totality. And that's where they chose Abe, which is an abbreviation of the word abbreviation, which is an abbreviation of their entirety, if that makes sense. I think it's quite clever how they did that. But they said, don't set it apart. Don't set us apart. Nothing is apart from you. Everything is a part of, not apart from. And everything, spirit, you, soul, Abe, is all tightly interwoven. And that our relational points, our points of energy, have been dormant, and we need to allow them to flow more. And we have to sharpen our senses to allow that relational flow. And specifically they said to be awake is to merge conscious with the unconscious. And it's as though we've separated it, as if in life, our waking life, we walk unconscious through life, distracted by the things around us, by the world stage, the theatre of life, entertainment. We're walking as unconscious beings. But the time now is to allow the energy to flow through us so we can merge the unconscious with the conscious, because really they're the same thing. We've just separated them into wakefulness and non-wakefulness. And it has to be within you already, does it not? we already have the capacity, the innate energy within us. Otherwise, we couldn't bring it forth. We cannot bring forth what we do not have. And by bringing forth our own relational energies, by allowing ourselves, we allow others as well. By unblocking our flow, that somehow vibrationally, energetically allows others to unblock themselves. And I think that's very important. That's how we relate to each other. We are allowing the energy to flow, but first a few of us has to unblock to allow others to unblock. And finally, they said, you are a resonating point of relation, a synapse, if you will, of the collective. And this is an analogy which ABE has used before as well, is that we're all like the neurons in the brain. And if we can rewire ourselves, i.e. if one neuron, one of us, can change and shift our perceptions and that, we change the neuron connections, the pathways in the brain. So by shifting ourselves, we also shift how we relate to others in other people in life, and we can create new alignments, new pathways, new vibratory resonances. And like the inside out, you are the synapse of the collective, the inside out. We are like the brain on the outside. All of us are the synapses in the human brain, and we need to change our pathways, our vibrational alignments. And then ABE signs off by saying, with much relational continuance, which means continue to be relational, to share the energy between us and not to block it. So in that short passage, I think there's a lot of depth there, which on first reading seems maybe a little confusing, but it takes maybe some understanding of how ABE communicates and some of the terms they use about relational points of place and resonance and allowance. So I thought I would share that, and I would like to perhaps come back, if you would allow that, to share some more recent communications from ABE. So thanks for listening.